This is TNC Movie Nights. We're not in the same room. Alex isn't right here. Funny enough, I thought he was coming here today. I don't know why. He communicated properly. My brain just went smooth brain. And I didn't realize that he wasn't coming here today. I literally had the table set up. I had his microphone set up. I had the webcam set up. Everything. So we're on Discord again, and of course we start recording, and my internet went out, so that was a lot of fun. But Alex is here, of course, with us. He's on the move.
Hello.
I don't think he's actually moving. Yeah.
It's illusion.
How's the?
It's fake. These trees are fake.
He's a phony.
Those are real. Good enough. Yeah, I'm in the van. I didn't go anywhere. Well, I'm not anywhere now. I'm like 20 minutes away from Brandon's house. We just took this on a test run up to Wisconsin over the night to camp out and see how it works with the electrical and stuff. It's not done yet, but we're getting close. Also apologize for the audio quality. I'm on my phone right now because I got back quite literally like a half hour ago. Another reason why we're not in the same room. But I'm in the van. This is probably something that will be the next several months of recording, hopefully with a little bit better audio, but we'll figure all that out. But I'm here.
He did it. He made it work, and that's all that matters. Today, as you can see by the title, somewhere in this general direction, 80s comedy breakdown. We've gone through the 50s and before, 60s, 70s, now we're in the 80s. 70s, I know there's some good movies, but to me, the 80s is the golden age, maybe the proper term, for comedy. There's a lot of movies, personally, in the 80s.
Or was it the worst decade?
I'd be shocked if that's the case. I think it's by far the best. But, I mean, we'll talk about the movies. This might be the first comedy breakdown we disagree. Because, wow, I'm shocked you're saying I think by far the 80s is, like, far superior than any decade.
Okay. It was definitely a golden age of movies, 100%. There were a lot of comedies that came out. Most of them are absolutely terrible. I have so much to say this week, and I'm so sorry. Also, like, spoiler alert, and also, like, kind of language alert, I guess, because I feel like I got worked up about this going over some of the stuff, and I felt some swears come out, and I know we're trying to keep it PG-13, but you and I also swear a lot more than we do on the show, so in case one slips out, I apologize. I will try.
Okay.
I'm very curious what you have to say, though.
Yeah, for me, I'll go and kind of explain the reason I personally love the 80s. John Hughes. Is it John Hughes or John Cusack?
John Hughes. It's John and Joan Cusack. They're the actors. John Hughes is the
John
guy.
Hughes. Okay, thank you. John Hughes movies are some of my favorites of all time. I apologize. Going to type for a second here, just to kind of pull up a bunch of his movies real quick.
Oh, don't worry. We'll get into them.
I'm just so... I'm so confused. All right. Personally, I'm not a huge National Lampoon fan, but I know, those are really big for a lot of people. 16 Candles, Breakfast Club, Pretty in Pink, Ferris Bueller's Day Off, Planes, Trains, and Automobiles, Uncle Buck, all in the 80s, and all movies that I even like Weird Science, personally. Those are all movies I think are really fun, and then also some other really great ones, not John Hughes, like the Blues Brothers. I'm a huge fan of the Blues Brothers. I like a lot of Bill Murray stuff in the 80s, I would say. Christmas Story, even though I don't really care for Christmas movies, Trading Places, Ghostbusters, Police Academy, Back to the Future, Better Off Dead, just a bunch of, listing off a bunch of stuff that's just, I think, great in the 80s. I really feel like you're going to be like, the 80s sucks because Revenge of the Nerds. And that's like, and honestly, that's what I'm expecting. Because I feel like you're gonna be like, it's the worst
Bingo.
generation of movies because one bad movie.
No. That's just the worst of them. But
Which,
there are
like-
so many.
Which I will
There
say,
are
like,
so many.
even looking at ratings, Revenge of the Nerds isn't like that loved in ratings. Like all the movies I just named are all like 80%ers, 75%ers, 90%ers. And then Revenge of the Nerds is like 60, 55% ish. So like I think everyone kind of agrees it's not that. I mean, there's a crowd that likes that movie, which fine, you can like whatever you want. But I feel like the general public is like, yeah, Revenge of the Nerds was eh.
Yeah.
So
Here's the thing with the 80s, right? A lot came out, and a lot of them were classics. But the ones that are bad are so bad, and the reasons why they're bad, it taints an entire decade.
I
of
so
movies.
disagree with that.
It's like if you walked into this beautiful museum with all of these ancient, like, paintings and sculptures, and then there was just shit on all of them.
Okay,
And you're
no.
like-
You're way over exaggerating that. Whoa.
Am I?
If anything,
Am I?
like to me, this is being like, yeah, there's 20 cars in front of me. 19 of them are Lambos. One's a 1970 completely beat up car, and then you're like, yeah, that 1970 car makes all the other 19 cars terrible. I'm like, how?
You know what?
How?
Right, I did over exaggerate because they weren't beautiful paintings. It wasn't a museum. I'll use your car analogy. It's like you went into a used car dealership and were like, hey, some of these are pretty decent. That one might even be pretty darn good. I like that one. And then like an old Chevelle just crashed through the showroom and you were like, huh? And then it kept raining Chevelles just on the showroom.
How?
Left
I'm
and right.
so
Murder
confused.
everywhere.
I guess like, okay, if you're wanting to say a movie like Back to the Future, Bill and Ted, Ferris Bueller's Day Off, like all those are used cars in the movie industry, that's mind blowing. To me, those are like, that's why I'm saying Lambos, because like those are some of the greatest movies like ever made. Like I'm
have
just
only bad things to say. I will say that. Let's break down a couple of these, and you'll see what I mean by just how bad the bad. And then I do have some good.
yeah.
Because it was the 80s.
I
There
would
were some
love
good
to.
movies.
I would love to know which ones are really bad. I mean, because don't get me wrong, I have not seen every movie in the '80s. I'm on the IMDb page of the top 100 '80s of comedy, and I would say in the top like 50, I've probably seen like 30% of them. And like, I'm just trying to think which ones other than Revenge of the Nerds. I'm just trying to
Don't
think.
worry, bud.
I'm
got a
yeah.
list.
Go ahead. I'd love to
Be
hear.
glancing down.
Yeah.
Should I? What do you think? I'll leave this up to you, dealer's choice. Should I run through the list completely and then one by one tick off why they're terrible pieces of shit, or should I just hit one and then we'll talk about it and then we can move on and leave that in the past?
How long is this list? I guess that really determines like.
Two.
I feel like you're gonna be like 35 movies, and I'm like, how?
No. Okay, I have 5 of what I would consider some of the worst. The problem is some of
Okay.
them are regarded as some of the best.
Oh, okay.
And so I have 5 that I would like to talk about on why I absolutely hate comedies from the 80s. And then I have some where I would love to talk about why I love comedies from the 80s. Like I said, it's not all bad. It's not all bad.
Okay,
I'm
if
a
you want,
nice guy.
if you want to go ahead and list them off, then the ones that are apparently so terrible.
All right, you want to hear all 5 of them and then we can break down?
Yeah, here, you know what? I want to see if I can try to guess them because I feel like I know what kind of like a motto you're gonna go with these. Like the. Okay, I'm gonna.
Rape is bad, like that motto.
Well, no, I said Revenge of the Nerds is bad. That's fine, but I think even like things that are even like sexualizing women, I'm gonna assume like Weird Science. I feel like will be on there. I feel like it's not. Okay, well then I have no idea what will be on your list. Go ahead.
It's got some issues. It's got some faults. It's got some flaws, right?
Yeah.
But. And maybe I have to see it again to see if there is
Yeah.
anything that's particularly egregious. But I'm talking about the movies that, like, are just I have a couple that are completely inexcusable, and then a couple where it's like, come
Okay.
on, really?
Okay.
I'll start
yeah.
with the one that has the least amount of beef.
Okay.
All
Okay.
right.
Yeah.
And that's Mr. Mom. Mr. Mom, it's just like, I don't need to talk about it too much, but it's really stupid. It's just stupid. What if the woman made the money in the family? How could you imagine children raised by a man? Comedy genius. Wacky time. It's stupid. That movie would have been passable, but it's just stupid. But like
Yeah,
I said,
I mean, I want to touch on that one real quick because like it has been a while since I've seen it. I will say probably a decade, and I always took that movie as like not as a, you know, what if women made money? It's like, could you imagine if men tried to raise kids? How goofy that would be. That's how I took it. Like I took it as more as well. That's my I took it more of kind of a joke about like a slam on men, not a slam on women. I guess when I remember it, like I just remember it being like men are too goofy and dumb to raise kids. But like, I don't know.
Sure, but does that make it better?
I mean, I don't. We have different ideas what we're not okay. I'm okay with jokes when it's like making fun of gender roles, I guess, and I know you don't enjoy them. So I guess that's the big difference.
Well, here's the thing. My issue with that isn't that they're making the joke. It's how just unbelievably lazy and dumb the whole idea. Like, you made a movie out of that? I mean, Pixar short maybe, but like a whole movie, and like a movie that goes down, it's like, oh my god, look at one of the golden gems from the golden age, and it's just really lame. But like I said, far from the biggest one. We don't need to spend this much time with Mr. Mom. It's not that bad of an offender. I just think it's a stupid, lazy concept. Porky's, I ain't even going to talk about. We're going to be here for too damn long.
Wait, which one?
Porky's.
I don't think I've ever even heard of that one. So yeah, I'm fine to skip it.
Imagine Revenge of the Nerds, but it's just other frat douchebags. That's it. It's just a worse Revenge of the Nerds, which somehow had less sex crimes in it, but like barely. I don't even want to talk about that.
Yeah.
Burn it out. The whole movie, burn it. It's terrible.
Well, here, my thing too is like when I'm talking about like, you know, the best movies, because here you can go to any decade, any year even, and find like a couple really crappy movies, but like that movie, I'm in the top 100 movies, and that's not in the top 100 comedies of the 80s.
Oh,
so. I'm trying to keep it in like because I've never even heard of that movie, let alone someone say it's a golden age movie. Really,
it falls into that cult classic sort of thing.
Okay,
it might not be on the top 100 rated or whatever, but I like. It's maybe not like Caddyshack cult classic, but it's definitely like one of the, you know, it's like I'd put it on board with like Stripes. It's in the same.
I'll let you know. Stripes is number 7 on the list.
I ain't even gonna get into Stripes. Before we get into exactly like the big two, I would say, we gotta talk about the movie Soul Man. Soul Man.
I have not seen that one either.
Good.
Go ahead.
Do you want to know the premise of Soul Man? Spoiled rich kid gets into Harvard Law. That's great. Good for you, bud. And then Dad says, what a great time for you to pay your own way. Oh my God, school's expensive. But wait, there's a scholarship. Oh no, it's a scholarship only for black students. Well, what if I dye my hair and my skin and fake an accent so that way everyone thinks that I'm black? It's literally blackface in the 80s, and that's the whole movie. If you want to defend it, first question, why? Second, I think they tried to make it a, hey, stupid white people, look how hard it is for black people in the world. But maybe don't make it a stupid goofball comedy like that. Like I wrote it down. The trailer, don't watch the movie. Watch the trailer. You get all you need to know from that. The slogan is literally, he didn't give up, he got down. Like, fucking, what? Are we just, did nobody try? I guess the only thing we can say about this is that later on it gave us white chicks as a redemption because the Wayans brothers were like, what? I guess we're gonna give this a shot. And he like, there's no punishment. he goes in blackface, and then he experiences racism, and then he like, he starts dating the girl that he stole the scholarship from, and then he gets arrested because the cops think he stole a car, and it was his, and then he just like, I'm white. Oh my god, I faked it the whole time. And you'd think, maybe go to jail for fraud, maybe get your ass kicked because you're a piece of shit. Nope, he just still gets the girl, and daddy decides to pay for the cop.
Here's my like issue with your argument right now. I agree that's a crappy movie, whatever. But also,
Soul Man?
I'm not defending Soul Man. I'm arguing with your disagreement about good 80s movies, because right now it feels like this is what you're doing. Let's jump 40 years in the future, and you're like, can we talk about how bad superhero movies were from 2000 to 2020? Like, let's talk about Thunder Force with Melissa McCarthy, and let's talk about Super with Rainn Wilson.
These are on lists, my man.
And let's talk
on like top 80s.
They're
movies
not.
list.
They're not, though. None of these are. I'm on 2 different lists and haven't found either of these movies. I'm on a top 100 and top 150. Like,
Fine, let's talk about 16 Candles.
okay, yeah, like, that's one we can talk about. I'm fine with that, but like,
Let's talk about 16 Candles.
so
I'm
far
ready.
you've brought up what 3 movies that aren't even 2 or 3 movies that aren't even considered like good movies of the 80s. So it's like, my problem is, it's kind of like if you and I disagreed on, again, superhero movies, and you're like, let's talk about, again, the weird ones I brought up, Super and like Sky High. It's like, oh,
I would never crash Sky High.
well,
Don't you dare besmirch
my
me.
point is, though, the level of a Sky High movie to like the MCU, and then being like, oh my god, yeah, let's trash the MCU because Sky High. It's like, that's what it feels like. You're taking movies that a 10% on Rotten Tomatoes, a 6% on Rotten Tomatoes, and a 13% on Rotten Tomatoes. Like, everyone agrees they're terrible movies, and we're talking about like the glory days of the 80s comedy.
Super popular.
How? Like, where are you saying that they're popular?
Soul Man, not super popular. Mr. Mom is a movie that everyone in our dad's range knows.
Which, again, I'll give you Mr.
is a cult classic. It's a piece of shit, and it's a cult classic.
I've genuinely, again, that's kind of like trying to debate Kick-Ass with like superhero movies. Kick-Ass is a cult classic, but no one's gonna debate Kick-Ass with like those big type movies. I guess my problem is, like, when I think of 80s comedies, and I feel like most people think of 80s comedies, they think of stuff like Airplane, National Lampoon, John Hughes movies, which you did bring up,
Alright.
Mr. Mom.
All right, let's get into it. Let's talk about 16 Candles.
Okay.
You like 16 Candles?
I'll be honest, it's been a long time since I've seen it. I really do not remember that movie. It was always like the John Hughes movie that I just never really cared about that much. And maybe because when I saw a lot of John Hughes movies, I was like a 13, 14, 15, 16-year-old boy, and I wanted to watch some movies about boys. And that's probably why. Like, I know I feel bad saying that, but like, I just, being a kid, I cared about watching people like me on the big screen. So.
Okay. Well, let's chat. Before we get into the real inexcusable parts of 16 Candles, let's just address the racist elephant in the room, in that one of the characters is named Long Duck Dong, and his only contribution to the movie is that people just chuck racial slurs at him, and a gong plays every time he enters the room. They just spend the whole movie calling him literally Chinaman and playing a gong whenever he enters the room. This is like Mickey Rooney in Breakfast at Tiffany's level, like, racism against Asian stereotypes. That Mickey Rooney was pretty bad. Maybe it's not that bad, but it was just like, come on, John, what are you doing, Mr. Hughes, guys? What are you doing? But that's not that's the appetizer. Let's get into the entree. Let me see here. Let me take a look at my notes here. The stupid underwear bet. Whatever, we don't even have to talk about the fact that it was made. Kids are stupid. We get it, right? How about how the male love interest, Jake, literally says the words, and I'm holding my phone up so I can read the quote. I've got Caroline in the bedroom right now, passed out cold. I could violate her 10 ways if I wanted to. He then offers to trade her, Ted, for Sam's underwear, and Ted takes the trade. Takes the passed out girl with whom to rape for a pair of underwear, for a bet. And then he drives away, takes pictures of her while she's unconscious, and then we're not quite positive that it happens, but one of two things happens. Either he rapes her and then they talk about it, or he makes her believe that he rapes her and then they talk about it. And he's not the villain. Like, they try to spin it like this is a moment for her. And this is like, look at the good guy admitting to the rape. Like, come on, man. Is that really what we're doing? Is that really what we're doing?
Which, like, again, like I'm because I really don't remember that movie that well. So like, I'm cool to agree that and then Revenge of the Nerds, because we've already brought it up, are bad movies. Like, I'll totally agree that those should be like, we could wipe those off the face of the earth. But my thing is to be like, oh yeah, the 80s are trash because 2 of the top 100 are just terrible movies.
But it wasn't
it's like,
just the 2. It happened throughout all of them. What was with the weird, like, recurring motif of surprise forced blowjobs? Like Police Academy, Ghostbusters, it was a bit to just put someone's dick in your mouth without their consent, and then they go, like, really, guys? The 80s is just what... Here's my beef with the 80s. Is that, like, it's just, it made so many terrible, awful, worse things you could do to a person into excusable, passable, downright encouraged things. And it's just unacceptable, all right? And
which,
before
like,
we get into Revenge of the Nerds,
yeah.
Sorry, go ahead.
I was gonna say, which, like, I'm fine to agree with that. My problem is, though, if you're just gonna base it off of that, which let's say it happens in 10% of movies, then the 80s is a terrible generation of comedy movies. The 70s is a terrible generation of comedies. The 60s, the 50s, the 40s, the 30s, the 20s, the 10s, the 90s, like, they're all terrible then, because it wasn't like, because like, I bet you could take 10% of movies. We talked about the 70s, how there were like 5 terribly, sexist movies. I know Animal House is the big one we talked about. The 60s, 50s, I bet they all said the N-word. I bet they all did blackface. Not all, but a bunch. So it's like, just to be like, yeah, 10% of movies were trash. The whole generation is trash. That's what I don't agree with.
We don't have people still to this day defending blackface. They went, Jesus, you know that movie in the 60s? Yikes. You know that movie in the 70s where the dude just beats the crap out of his wife the whole time and it's meant to be the joke? Yikes. But then you get people who are like, Revenge of the Nerds is a classic. Just give it to them jocks. Those nerds need to get there. It's like, it's the lack of just critical self-awareness and realizing what the hell happened and that it's not a good thing. Like, I blame Revenge of the Nerds for that whole nice guy, incel-y type thing that we talk about so much. I genuinely think Revenge of the Nerds is the biggest reason for that, because it showed you, hey, just go be the worst human being ever. As long as there's a dude who likes football, who's a little bit of a dick near you, that's okay, because you're the nice guy. Yeah, you are. And I just have no tolerance for it at all. And it's the whole decade just encouraged that terrible behavior. And then you have a bunch of people stuck in their comedic ways who aren't willing to accept that, hey, maybe literally raping someone and that being the punchline, maybe we don't defend that movie anymore. Maybe we don't call that a classic. Maybe we don't recommend that to a 15-year-old to watch. Maybe just a thought.
I mean, again, like, my whole thing to that is still, though, You could do that with the 70s at least, because people do defend movies in the 70s that are like that. I know you complained about a lot, and I agreed with you then. Like Animal House, Blazing Saddles. 2 movies that are terribly racist or terribly sexist that people will say, I mean, I'm looking at a list right now that's number 1 and number 3. At least, at least something here. 16 Candles is 47 as high as I can find it on a list in comparison to like ranking stuff. So like then if we're just going to take it. What's up?
That's wild. I've seen 16 Candles and stuff like that in like the top 10. Sometimes like
I'm on
top.
I'm on 2 different sites right now. One of them is 57 and then the other one I'm in the 40s and I have 35. So it's like I
saw Revenge of the Nerds at 1 on one of these lists too, and then in like the top 5 in another.
I have 2 different places showing up right now, and neither of them have Revenge of the Nerds in the top 30. So
well, since we're talking about Revenge of the Nerds, do we want to just get this out of the way so we can be nice, or should we save
realistically, Revenge of the Nerds is. We both hate the movie. I mean, it's been a while since I've seen it. I don't like the movie. I never cared for it. But I was also 16 when I didn't like it. So I didn't dislike it because of, probably the the ridiculously changing of how movies have done over time. I just thought it was a crappy movie. That was my thing to it. Again, I haven't seen it in almost 10 years, so...
That's the thing, is it is just a crappy movie, but it's also a crappy movie that does, like, the worst things imaginable, and then it's encouraged. Like, let's just run through the list. So, they break into a sorority house to steal all their underwear, and while they're stealing their underwear, they have people installing security cameras and video cameras, regular cameras, just in the walls, in the roof, and then they take pictures with those cameras, and then they sell them on like the bottom of pie tins or whatever the hell it was. Some like, I think it was Homecoming or whatever. So they're just like, you're stealing their underwear, and then you're hiding spy cams. So that's like 2 really bad crimes right there. And then you're selling those pictures you took of them without them knowing it. 3rd sex crime. And then, let me see, is there anything before the rape? Oh yeah, no, and then there's just an actual rape that you just like watch. He puts on a mask and pretends to be someone else and then fucks his girlfriend, the guy he's pretending to be. And then after they're done, he takes the mask off. Surprise, I just raped you. And they just like, oh my God, you are so much better than my boyfriend. Let's just ignore the fact that you just raped me because you stuck it to the chalk. You did it. Because there's one jerk who's an asshole, you get to literally rape people, but because you're wearing glasses and have a high-pitched voice, you're the good guy. You did it, guys. Way to go. Good job. You fucking did it, you morons. I hate that damn movie so much, and if anyone defends it, please come over and I'll happily punch you square in the head so that way we don't have to deal with that shit anymore. It's not cool. It's not funny. It's not fun. It's a shit movie with just, it's ridiculous. And it's because of shit like that we have people who idolize the movie Joker. It's because of that we have people who say shit like, you owe me, fine, well then I'm never gonna be nice to you again. Don't expect me to ever do anything for you. It's just because I'm not an asshole, isn't it? You are an asshole. You're the biggest piece of shit in the world. And this close to being a literal felon. So maybe, like, do something, and not from Revenge of the Nerds, because it's a piece of actual shit. But now we can talk about Bill and Ted, 'cause that movie's rad.
Yeah, I totally agree with you, like, on the points about that movie, and again, I don't care for 16 Candles, so, like, it's just difficult for me to be like, yeah, there's 2 popular movies that are terrible, a cult classic that's terrible, and that diminishes Back to the Future, Ferris Bueller's Day Off, Trading Places, Airplane, Planes, Trains, and Automobiles, Ghostbusters, Uncle Buck, Weird Science, Spaceballs, Princess Bride, Major League, The Goonies, Beetlejuice, and like, and now it's like
nothing will ever tarnish Princess Bride.
Well,
nothing.
To be fair, to start this episode, you literally said, I don't know word for word, but you said the 80s is like the worst generation of movies for comedies.
It is.
And it's like, because 3 movies?
It has some of the best. It has some of the best. but the ones that are the worst are so bad that it makes me hate the entire decade. Because this
That
whole
just doesn't
decade,
make sense.
even in passing, like Ghostbusters, right? Ghostbusters is great. Venkman's a bit of a creep, but he doesn't actually like assault anybody. There's that weird like blowjobby scene again where it's like, so you have like non-consensual sex and also someone who doesn't understand no means no, and that's one of the best ones, right? Like the bar that we set for these movies is literally, hey, can you like not rape people, or like do it a little but not that much? Like that's the bar that we set, and that's why I hate. I have, you know what? Maybe let me rephrase that. I don't hate the 80s more than any genre. I have the most anger towards the 80s out of any genre. And you're totally right. There are some absolute gems. Princess Bride is one of my favorite movies ever made. It's amazing. Bill and Ted, I mean, it's amazing. But also, how is Bill and Ted one of the movies that holds up the best over time? Even like big, feel good, big. Holy crap, Tom Hanks. But like, still, she has sex with a child. Like, that's not cool, man. It's like, oh, and I like Big, and it's, other than that, it's like mostly fine. Gremlins, we've already talked about. Gremlins is fun. We can like Gremlins, right? I am so sweaty right now. Oh my god. Ghostbusters, the Goonies. Maybe not the best for like Asian stereotypes with the kid, but like also it's pretty. I mean, I can't shit on Goonies. It's the Goonies. I mean, I love Josh Brolin.
I mean, like,
How can I say anything bad about the Goonies?
I mean, you're like, to me, like, you're not even saying like the good movies. Princess Bride, great, but like in comparison to some of these other ones, I'm sorry. We'll talk about Ferris Bueller's Day Off soon.
Bill and Ted, the Goonies. What do you mean?
In comparison to so many other movies in here,
actually going to get picked up from this because I've peeked probably 100,000 times. It's going to sound like I've like phone reception from the 90s on this thing, but I'm sorry. Go ahead.
No, I mean, like, don't get me wrong. Those to the average person, those are really good movies. But also to me, like, there's so many other better ones, like Breakfast Club, Ferris Bueller's Day Off. Those are two of them. Let me scroll back up a little bit.
We'll talk about Ferris Bueller for the review.
Yeah, exactly.
Because that's hey, big surprise. That's the movie that we're going to review, so we can talk about that one a lot. I do like Ferris Bueller's Day Off.
Yeah, Princess Bride, Beetlejuice.
Beetlejuice is fun.
Blues Brothers, I throw in there. I mean, Bill and Ted, you brought up. That's cool.
Hold on. You're gonna talk to me about how I'm taking like the bottom of the barrel and ignoring the top when you pick Beetlejuice over the Goonies and Ghostbusters?
I'll let you know right now. Beetlejuice is higher than the Goonies on this list, and it is
whack.
Okay, I'll check IMDb then as well.
And no disrespect to Beetlejuice, Michael Keaton, well done. Everyone else in that movie, well, I haven't seen it in so long, but like, yeah, I'm not trying to crap on Beetlejuice. I'm just saying, you were getting mad at me for picking on 16 Candles as if it's not one of the most popular movies of the 80s.
I mean, on IMDb, Beetlejuice is higher than it. Goonies is higher, and so is Ghostbusters. I will agree there. But, like, I'm not picking bottom of the barrel like you picked for 2 or 3 year movies that aren't even in the top 100. I picked all movies in the top, like, 30 practically. So
we'll let our viewer decide if
let us know,
movies
Scott.
that are literally cult classics count as movies that represent the 80s.
No, I didn't say Ghostbusters didn't. I'm not saying those don't represent the 80s. I'm saying if I got to choose the best ones, those aren't the ones I choose. But I mean, I still don't think like Soul Man and stuff like that represent the 80s at all.
No, you know what? You're right. Soul Man does not, but it is so amazingly ridiculous that if I'm talking about why I hate the 80s and that movie's not there, then I am doing this show a disservice. So that's why I brought it up. I'm not trying to say Soul Man is Porky's is a cult classic along the likes of like, again, maybe not like Caddyshack tier, but it's definitely like in that 80s frat bro classics.
I would say maybe for like a cult classic thing, because IMDb doesn't have in the top 150 maybe. No, okay, it only goes down to like 120. But I mean, I don't know. I guess for me, because I always thought I really enjoyed a lot of 80s movies. For you to call 2 of the 5 movies that were terrible, I've never even heard of, so that was just kind of surprising. But
what are some of your favorite? Let's talk about the good.
Yeah, I mean, I've already said a bunch of mine. Of course, Ferris Bueller's Day Off, Trading Places, Major League, Spaceballs, Princess Bride. I would probably have to throw in there now. Beetlejuice, Blues Brothers, Fast Times at Ridgemont High, Better Off Dead, Breakfast Club. Yeah, that's pretty much the main list of mine. I mean, I'm sure there's other ones that are good that I haven't scrolled down past 50 yet, so.
This has been an interesting episode.
Yeah, it definitely has been.
Might have been my loudest one. I can feel how loud I've been.
Honey, I Shrunk the Kids.
Oh, man. And look, here's the too long didn't read version. I have so much anger toward the 80s because of how many completely lazy and inexcusable things they passed off as the good guy winning, right? Because in my mind, when you're literally a rapist who torments people throughout an entire movie, how the hell are you the good guy? And then how are you idolized? And I can go on and on, but I just hate that crap, man. It makes me so mad. I have no patience for it. It's why I hate Animal House. It's why I hate Revenge of the Nerds. It's why I really can't sit through 16 Candles. It is inexcusable in my book, and it does tarnish some of the absolute gold that we did get. And thank you for reminding me some of the gold, because, yeah, Princess Bride will always be one of my absolute favorite movies. I love Josh Brolin, and Goonies is great. Part of this trip, we're gonna go see where they filmed the Goonies. That we want to go see a bunch of like movie things. I actually, this has nothing to do with this episode, but while we were in Mirror Lake, I walked the path where they filmed part of Public Enemies with Johnny Depp, and so I literally walked on where the track was for some of the film equipment and where he was running through the woods. So I don't know, that was fun. We started the trip by seeing movie stuff. And I like movies, and I want to like movies, but some of these 80s comedies make me really not like movies, and that bothers me because I love them, and I just get angry at them. And I think throughout this entire series, if we have any listeners who have seen most of our episodes, you'll know how just absolutely zero tolerance I have for that quote-unquote nice guy, and how I think that Revenge of the Nerds used to be the anthem and it turned into Joker, and that's what happens when you do that, and that's my issue. And I'm gonna stop talking now. And Brandon, if you have anything else to say, please do, and if you don't, just tell the people where they can find us.
Yeah, I guess we'll just have to agree to disagree on our thoughts of the 80s. Alex, I can understand the dislike for movies, but I guess the big difference for me is, like, the movies, I'm like, yeah, those movies are terrible. Like, I'm like, all right, yeah, I don't even think about them anymore. They're just out of sight, out of mind. Everything else that I love in the 80s, I'm like, yeah. Because I could give you, like, my top 25 comedies, and I would probably bet 15 of them are from the 80s. So it's hard for me to just say, like, to write off a decade almost. But, yeah, I mean, that's going to do it for us for our 80s breakdown today. Let us know your thoughts. Maybe you agree very heavily with Alex that
I doubt
the hatred for some of those movies. Maybe you agree with me that some movies just turn the other cheek and be like, yeah, that was a terrible movie. Well, I love the other ones. We'll see, though. Let us know. If you want to find more stuff from us, that's really simple. thenerdchambers.com. All of our episodes go on the website. And also, if you want to support the show, you can with getting some merch on there as well. A little TNC Penguin merch. Got the hoodie shirt for the Nerd Chambers logo. And if you want to reach out to us, any social media platform, TNC Movie Nights. Real nice, simple. But that's going to do it for us today. I'm Brandon. That's Alex. See you for Ferris Bueller.